Meeting of the October 6th Study Commission to order, please. May we have a roll call?
Raylan Brandel,
Here?
Lori Casey,
Here.
Dan Dennehy, Mary McCormick,
Excused?
Cindy Purdue Dolan, Cindy Shaw,
Excused?
Chad Silk, Matt Steppen,
Believe he's on his way.
okay, and Ben Thielen.
Can we have our Pledge of Allegiance and prayer, please? All right, thank you. So our first item, public comment on any item on the agenda.
All right, Edward Banner, 2601 Grand Avenue. Just a couple of questions. You keep talking about an op-ed. I kind of wondered what it was all about. And then I wondered why you're not putting out news releases after each meeting, because you're covering subjects that are new and different each time.
Thank you, Mr. Banderob. Any other public comment on any item not on the agenda, or on the agenda?
Good evening. My name is John Reardon, 1107 Iowa Avenue, and I just thought I've been following you guys quite closely, and first of all, I just want to thank you and appreciate you for the work that you guys are doing, because it's a large task. There's some doors that haven't been open for quite a while. The process has been in Butte for years and years. You know, I remember, I don't want to get into it, but years ago, the big council of commissioners usually started at the Drift Inn, and then they'd come up and do some work up here at the courthouse and all that stuff. So, but right now we have a pretty full plate with the people and the growth and all that. And I just wanted to state that I really support the system that we're looking at, the replacement system, because something's got to change. I mean, Butte was a small, quaint community and all that. It grew, it went down, it grew, and then now here we are, we're really growing really fast. Ordinances need to have attention, support for the people that we have out there. And I think what this would do, this process would open up the public interest of the voting citizens. They would have more transparency, and I'm not saying there isn't transparency now, but it would give them more of a chance to participate in all that. And I think that would more or less bring the government back together, where the right hand knew the left hand, and then the commissioners would know what to do with their people in their district. Commissioner is, I looked, there's a couple people around here that have been on the commission and all that. It's probably the craziest job I've ever had. For the fact that, number one, I was retired and had some time, and number two is just that the situations that you run into that people don't understand and don't know the process, how to get it. I noticed on the agenda and all that, there was a deal about community councils. I don't know if I'm allowed to speak at that. I think that would help a lot, getting more people involved in this situation. But I just mainly came up to support you guys. Like I said, it isn't an easy job. We got some great people here that really care about Butte and want to get some things done. So I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reardon. Any other public comment on item on the agenda?
All right, Edward Banner, 2601 Grand Avenue. Reference public comment on any items not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the Study Commission. The subject, clarification of a point of procedure. Butte-Silver Boat precedent and state of Montana law relative to public comments. At the last meeting of the Local Government Study Committee, the question of precedent came up relative to public comments. This brings up the crux of the issue. Why does the Butte-Silver Boat public throw up their arms and say, what's the use? And then do not try to participate in their local government? The answer being simple. Because of the Butte-Silver Boat precedent, they are not allowed to participate in the discussions. According to the Butte-Silver Boat precedent at the Butte public meetings, there is to be public comment period. One for items on the agenda and one for items not on the agenda. Public discussion is not to be allowed during either. According to Montana law, at public meetings, for items not on the agenda, there is to be a public comment period. There is not to be a back and forth conversation with the board or the commission. No action should be taken on any public comment that addresses something not on the agenda. For items on the agenda, Montana law states, or the public has the right to participate in the discussions of the board or commission on agenda items before a final decision is made. A recommended procedure is outlined in the Montana Code. So I don't get caught in the crossfire again. I am sure the people of the greater Butte-Silver Boat community would appreciate it if you would consider putting procedure for public comment and public participation during discussions on your agenda in an item under new business at your next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banderab. We jumped ahead. Is there any other public comment on items on the agenda? Okay. And then now, is there any other public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay. Excellent. All right, thank you. So I'd like to move on to approval of minutes of the meeting held September 22nd and the public hearing meetings held on September 29th.
I move to approve the minutes of September 22nd and the public hearing minutes held on September 29, 2025.
Is there a second? Mr. Silk seconds. Is there any discussion on the approval of the minutes? Can I get a vote for the approval of minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you for approving our minutes, and thank you, Ms. Boyd and Ms. Christians, for the detailed minutes. We appreciate those. Okay, so moving on. Correspondence or study commission update.
So at the last meeting, you guys asked me or Annie to reach out to the GIS department about the fire districts. I provided an email to all of you in regards to that. Ross Carlson emailed back and said that, yes, GIS is in the process of reviewing the prior fire district mapping efforts. And they met with Lee Sullivan about this for the first time last week, so mid-September. And they have a reoccurring meeting now with him on Thursdays for the foreseeable future. He briefed the GIS department on the fire district mapping endeavors undertaken to date by Ross's predecessor, Dan, and they are starting to dig into the data. They're unsure of how complete or accurate the mapping data and resulting static maps are until they gain a further or a deeper understanding of the data. Basically just meaning whether the mapping work is 10 or 90% complete currently. There are 92 council descriptions that they have to review the mapping of to understand if the mapping data for the proposed fire district represents these legal descriptions yet or not. And they're still becoming familiar with the prior work in this arena and digging into all the available data from Dan's work, comparing it to the available source data from Lee, and examining the mapping work and trying to trace the source legal descriptions all the way through to the end polygons. And they think that the mapping work is further along than less so, but are also already found differences in the source council resolutions from what Dan had compared to Lee, discrepancies in documentation about what had and had not been mapped in a spreadsheet versus the resulting map data. And Lee has been very helpful in helping them expedite their learning about the data in this arena and has graciously volunteered to come in to meet with them on days he's not on shift. And then he said they can provide more updates about the work as they learn more.
Thank you. Are there any other study commission updates? Mr. Enruth?
May I interject before we go on to the next thing? Can I add something to this email? Comment?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay. Just a minute before we started the meeting, and I just want to get it on the record, I had asked Chad who Lee Sullivan was. So Chad, can you explain who Lee is, and then I'll say something else?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Cindy. So Lee is a firefighter paramedic who is in charge of our IT committee at the career department. One of the reasons that brought us to finding out or trying to find all of the fire districts mapping was the new Flex system that Dan was a big part in getting us. It's a computer-aided dispatch system, and we needed to have the proper mapping documentation. So when someone calls 911, the pin will drop. 911 knows how to send. They click a button, it says all the units that need to respond, and they go ahead and go. This was brought up, a couple years ago, and I distinctly remember, and I'll look back in the fire advisory minutes, the volunteers were asked to provide their district boundaries, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the volunteer at that time said, what's the job of the fire director? What does the director do? Why can't he find those? So when Cindy asked me if the volunteers were asked to help or to fact check this, it probably not recently. That was, I assume, taken as they weren't going to do it, and the IT committee for the career department was going to investigate that. And with Dan retiring, there was just a changing of the guard, as that email said. So they're starting back to zero to make sure that everything is clear and accurate. What I can do is suggest to the director of fire services to have a volunteer go to these Thursday meetings to make sure that what's in black and white is black and white, and it's properly documented. If someone from the volunteer department wants to fulfill that role, it's all public documentation. So It all has to be accurate. And we want it accurate because we do not have a true fire district map in this community. We have a response area map, but not a fire district map with true boundaries and resolutions for district boundaries. So that might enlighten some people and bring some more insight to it. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Cindy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that, Chad. I just wanted to get that on the record because that's great information to have. And I would hope that, someone with the volunteers can join that because, best way is to try and get you guys to start working together and getting this information so we can be proactive in what we're doing because, folks have asked for this mapping, as have we, but also to the point of not wanting to go further down the process and then have someone come out and say, well, wait a minute, only paid folks were working on the mapping. This is not right. So I want to try and prevent any of that from happening if we can at all with the information that we get, that it's correct and accurate and both sides can sign on to that. And I think that's a good way to go. Thanks, Chad.
Ms. Casey?
This question I think might be for Chad, but Chad, do you know, are they doing it by resolution, and the resolution usually has a boundary description?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, the guy to ask that question to would be Firefighter Sullivan. But I believe the documentation of those resolutions has townships, sections, and everything that you're very familiar with. To the best of my knowledge, yes, that's how they're doing it. One thing that I maybe would suggest is that it might be brought to the fire advisory board to see if there's a volunteer that the volunteer council could select if they wanted to be a part of this process. And again, I've said it in other meetings, but if volunteers are listening to this, or if anyone can talk to the volunteers to speed up the process with bringing their documentation, I believe maybe Racetrack did do that. And I imagine that sped up the process. But there has to be more people in the community that have the district boundaries than just the archives, but at least the archives has them. So short answer, I think the resolutions are what they're going off of.
Okay. Thank you for that update. And, again, on fulfilling this mapping need, we're a little bit out of our purview, but I appreciate the efforts to make sure that people are included and working well together, and especially as that information will help support the study commission's work as we move forward. Okay, Mr. Enruth, I think we're ready for you.
Good evening, commissioners. Prior to the meeting started, I handed all of you did get the memorandum that was prepared. All of you should have also got a printout of some emails from with regards to Ravalli County and them changing their charter in form of government here back in 2016. And then some of you got the We the People of Butte-Silver big packet that is what our study commission did back in 2006. So what I would like the commissioners to look at with regards to this is the memorandum lays out your next course of action. Us as Butte-Silver County, we are an incorporated municipality, so we fall under whether if we want to choose the county rules or the municipality rules, we can go back and forth. They're both contained in here. They're almost identical, as you'll see with regards to what study commissions can do. So the purpose of the study commission, obviously, as we all know, is to study whether or not Butte-Silver County wants to make any recommendations to the existing plan of government. You may also draft a charter. You may also do things that previously have been done, which is incorporated municipal county consolidation. You may also submit no recommendation. One of the big questions that was proposed to me was how many recommendations does this council get to submit on a ballot? So if we look in the memorandum, you get to submit one question with 3 sub-options. So once a study commission finalizes a recommendation, a local government body must present to the proposed voters what that recommendation is. You can look in there under section 3, a study commission recommendation. There are also 2 other ways to do this: by local ordinance or verified petition, but we are under the study commission recommendations. Under 7-3-192, a study commission's recommendation of an alternative form or plan of government must be submitted to the voters as an election conducted under section 149, which gets into the same way that if it was presented to you guys, or presented to the commissioners through a petition by the people. So when you start looking back at these statutes, just remember that they're all referencing each other. So while section 7.3, 150, and 151 state based off of a petition, the other statute specifically references back that that's how these things have to be handled. So when we're looking at what you can put on the ballot, it's going to state a petition recommendation when you're looking in the statutes, but that's the same thing that the study commission can do. So under section 7-3-151, a petition or recommendation may include up to 3 sub-options with no more than 2 alternatives. So basically what that means is, if you look at the option they give you in the statute down underneath section 3 see that's section 6, or paragraph 6, number 3, and then underneath it says vote for 1 to be elected for a term of 4 years or to be appointed for a term of 4 years by a presiding officer. That is the statutory sub-language under which you need your 2 options under your 1 choice, right? So that is for the county attorney specifically, and that is your question, and then you get the 2 sub-options underneath that is how it reads. So for instance, one of the ones I know that this commission was currently looking at was the coroner. Do the citizens of Butte-Silver County wish to retain the coroner the way it is, or under these 2 options? Does that all make sense to everybody? So based on what I'm reading and what I have found, you get 3 of them. And when you look at the emails that I provided you from Ravalli County, I could have condensed that into a memorandum, but when you actually read through the emails themselves, the way they're written, I think it makes more sense. And you can look at that and see what Ravalli County was trying to do. They were trying to put, substantially more than 3 items with the 2 subsections underneath them on their ballot. And the attorney for Mako, I don't believe Harold is there anymore, but I do have an email into whoever's now doing this, specifically laid out that you cannot do that. You have to break it back down into your 3 questions. So what he did is he took, what they were looking at doing, which was taking their county commissioners from 5 back down to 3, and then also restructuring their terms. How they had it set up was each one of those was a separate question. So question number 1 was, knocking the commissioners back down from 5 to 3, and then they had a separate question of going from 4 to 6 years. The Mako attorney suggested combining those to make it 1 question. When you read that in here, you'll see those types of options. Obviously, this was a non-legal binding opinion, as he was the Mako attorney, and he suggests that their county attorney would have to issue an opinion. But between the research Sean and I did, this is what it keeps boiling back to, is this commission gets to change 3 things. One of them, being, the form of government, and then anything that falls under sections 1 through 6 of Montana Code Annotated 7-3, sections 1 through 6. You can see in there all the different options that we can have, which is the manager commission style government, continue what we have going forward, the mayor style one as well. I provided the packet from the 2006 Study Commission so you guys can review what they did there and how they, started kind of putting together their proposals for the people of Butte-Silver County. This is honestly, I think this packet that I was able to obtain was like their final report, is almost what it looks like to me. But it's got slides in there, and I think it just obtained a lot of good information for everybody to be able to review, to just look at how they structured things. So when we get back to looking under paragraph 6, remember there's that single question requirement, and then we can have the sub-questions that specifically, with regards to our charter, and then you have under those sub-questions the 2 alternatives. I put in there just some guidelines with regards to kind of the process that you guys are looking and going forward through. Always contact me, and then the conclusion there. But that's the basis of that big question, is it appears to me that you guys get 3 amendments to our current charter and form of government based off of the new statute. The one thing Sean and I have not been able to find, because we don't have a book, but we're looking for one and we can't pull it up on Lexis, is if the 2006 laws were structured significantly different than the current laws that we're going under, mainly because if you look through that packet that I gave you guys about what the 2006 Study Commission did, they did have the some of the more general questions such as deleting transitional language and clarifying out-of-date references within the local Butte-Silver charter. That was one of the things that they put on the ballot back then. But again, when you look at that, they put a lot more on the ballot than what I believe the law is currently allowing us to, so I think this might have been changed. But the one thing that the study commission can do that I know that everybody's looking at, because you want to do a lot of different changes in the charter, you can draft a charter for adoption by the voters. That's part of your guys' authority, but that would be drafting a whole new charter. And how that looks on a ballot, I cannot find an example of it if it just says that you guys want to adopt a new charter and then proceed forward with the local government developing that charter and laying it all out. But I genuinely think that if you're drafting a new charter, the voters have the right to look at that charter before it's fully adopted. But as you guys as what I think your procedure is now, is you get 3 things that you can change, and you can have the 2 options underneath each one of those requests on the ballot, and then this gives you guys some framework to continue forth with that. Like I said, I have an email out to the head attorney for MACO with regards to anybody else that has recently done one closer to ours, more like Valley County's is a little off, but to see if there's something even newer that we can look at and grab. But for the purposes of going forward, that's what it's looking like for now. And sorry, that's a lot to digest. That memo is kind of big.
Clarification questions?
Yes.
Mr. Dennehy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Matt, very much. Without reading your information that you gave us today, these might be redundant questions, but
You're okay.
so we have 3 ballot issues that can be put on the ballot, and underneath each of those 3 are 2 sub-options for a certain subject and for or against a certain subject. Sometimes in other charters, it's 2 affirmative votes. For example, the council commissioners, the first ballot measure would say something like, for the amendment of the charter that would require 5 or council commissioner members for that amendment or against that amendment. That's one sub-option. Second sub-option, could it be those new members of the council commissioners shall be elected at large or 2 elected as districts, through districts. And 3 sub-option would be those commissioners would be part-time commissioners versus those commissioners will be full-time commissioners. So that's 1 ballot issue, or is that 5 ballot issues?
Commissioner Dennehy, that's where I want you to read those emails with the Ravalli County commissioners. That is exactly what they were discussing, because I think that's where we're going to get into trouble is we want to do a lot of things and we want to break it down and make it clear. But the problem with that is then that exceeds the statutory authority. Do you want us to move that, Ms. Dolan? I don't know if we can. Oh. Sorry, I didn't mean to stop. I just looked over and I'm like, read those emails between the Ravalli County, that was dealing over there in Ravalli County, because that's literally what it addresses, is that specific option, because that's what they were trying to do, was break it down into 6 or 7 different ballot initiatives. And the MACO attorney was clear that he believed it violated those provisions of the law where we're allowed only 3, and that's why he was saying you can possibly combine these. But then if you read in there, and I do agree with them, you have to be very careful that we don't make it convoluted and not understandable, which again, if you were able to lay them all out, okay, five commissioners compared to 12, 4 or 6 year terms. When you read in there, he shows that you might have to combine those because we don't have enough options to put them all on the ballot.
Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Matt, it seems to me at this juncture that we're at, and you're absolutely correct, there are a lot of things that people want to change in this charter. And unfortunately, with that assessment of only 3 ballot options, or I'm glad you added this tonight because I didn't realize that having only 3 binding ballot issues and a list of recommendations that we can give the Council of Commissioners, those recommendations that we give in a list aren't binding. They can accept them or they can say, no, we're not going to do that. So it's imperative for some of these changes that people want made to the charter, it may, and because we haven't done it for over 20 years, to redo the whole charter and put that on the ballot, because then it would be totally binding. Is that correct?
Commissioner Dolan, so that is the one question that Mr. Peterson and I have yet to find a final answer on, but that's what we were discussing last week and earlier today was one of the options that this study commission has is to draft a charter. And Sean and I looked at each other and we said, well, does that mean redraft a current charter or not? And so that is one of the questions that we want a few more opinions on before we finalize that answer to this commission. But we do believe it is a possibility. We can't specifically find anything that prohibits redrafting of it, which wouldn't make any sense anyways, because obviously it's in there for a reason. And as you just said, ours is 20 years old. You need to be able to redraft these older documents to catch up with the times and things like that, and only being able to change, 3 options in them, or 3 options within your local government can become cumbersome. Now, the one thing we need to keep separate here is, one, the study commission has been asked of whether or not we should actually modify our form of government. And then the sub-questions also go underneath that one. So essentially, do the citizens of Butte-Silver County want to go to a commission manager formed style of government? And then those sub options are obviously the number of commissioners and the years that go with that. And then I do think one of those is a possibility of redrafting a charter that can contain all of everything. But Sean and I have not had a final answer on that yet. So yes and possibly no.
Just one quick follow-up. Thank you, Madam Chair. So knowing that, and I'm hopeful that we can redraft the entire charter, because I think as we continue this process, there's going to be a jockeying of position on which things are most important. I mean, there are some folks that are pushing certain things that may or may not be a ballot intense question, or maybe just a change of a word in the current charter. For example, the community councils, that's already in the charter. But
Correct.
Instead of just changing a word from shall to may, or from may to shall, that changes the whole dynamic of community councils that are currently in the charter. So that, in my point of view, that wouldn't be a ballot issue, because that's just a language question. Of course, it changes everything with one word, but to make it easier for folks to vote on things, I mean, I just think there's going to be some little bit of fireworks on what ends up being a ballot issue and which ends up being a list of recommendations for the Council of Commissioners. And anyway, that's what I think.
Well, and just as a follow-up to that, Sean and I will have an answer by October. Our next meeting is 22nd, 21st?
21st, 2
Yeah,
weeks.
21st. We'll have a full-blown answer on whether or not that is a possibility, and what the time frame of redrafting that looks like. And just as with regards to community councils, I do believe that the may was put in there because if it's a shall, it becomes basically an unfunded mandate. You have to go do these things. So just while we're looking at all of those, I would caution forcing forcing things like that on communities. Some of our communities might not want them. But I do think we can tune that language up.
I'll take Mr. Dennehy, and then I'll go to Mr. Steppen.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Matt, looking at the 2006 charter, they have 7 issues.
Yes.
And so in your legal opinion, based on what you know and your review of the state statute, would you say that the 7 ballot issues that were placed on the ballot in 2006 was not the correct way to go, or against, I shouldn't say against, but violated state law?
I don't have an answer for that, Commissioner Dennehy, specifically because when you look at that, the 2006 law is approximately 20 years old. It very well could have been different. The program that we use for legal research is LexisNexis Plus. We have a very advanced version of it, but sometimes it doesn't allow us access to things that old, and we have to go literally find a book. And the only place I know where that book may exist is in the old DeHood Law Firm in Anaconda, and so I might have to drive over there and find it because they have a very large law library next to the University of Montana.
Mr. Steppen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 points, I think. One, just logically in my mind, it seems that it doesn't make sense to me that it's something that you only have the opportunity to do every 10 years is limited to 3 recommendations that you can make. That's the first thing that jumps out at me. The second, and I'm certain I will not be able to articulate this well, but reading the copy of the emails that you sent, I'm seeing a petition recommendation may not involve more than 3 separate sub-options. When I read that, I read one petition recommendation might be our chief executive form of government, and that we can't have more than 3 sub-options to that. I'm not reading 3 total, at least that's not what I'm reading. Does that make sense? Am I articulating that?
I understand your question, yes. So if you go to the memorandum, specifically, well, there's no page numbers, but it's going to be under paragraph 3. There are 3 ways in which a local government can modify their charter or their form of government. One of them is a verified petition. That petition actually comes from the people. They have to gather signatures. I believe it's 15% of the local voting body, and then they are limited by statute under section 7-3-151 to how many choices they can put on their petition to modify. And it's one petition. Now the question becomes is can they provide multiple petitions if they got 15% of the voting population to submit 3 different petitions? Possibly, but I don't read it that way. I read it as it's a verified petition, and these are the 3 things that they can change under that petition. Now, what's different here is there's a study commission recommendation, because the people of Butte-Silver County already voted to convene a study commission. This body was elected. When you go into what a municipal study commission may do, it's at the top of that specific page. You have more options than just a petition submitted by the people. Those options being one of them that's different is to actually draft a charter. Also, you can make the recommended amendments to an existing plan of government, but when you get into section 7-3-149, you are specifically still stuck to the amount of recommendations that you can make to the voting population, which is the same as if a petition was submitted, which is the 3. And those 2 statutes correlate with each other, and it took us a while to find the one random one that showed that it did. But that's where Sean and I were stuck, was do you guys have an unlimited amount? Because of what the 2006 Study Commission did, that was a possibility in our brain until we found the statute that specifically correlates those 2, which is on the next page, and it's 7-3-192. A study commission's recommended alternative form or plan of government must be submitted to the voters in the same manner as an election conducted under 7-3-149, which is the ballot structure for the petitions, which is 7-3-150 and 151, and that is to ensure consistency with citizen-initiated proposals. Basically, they didn't want to give you more power than citizens had themselves.
Mr. Enruth, with some of those or those charter cleanup pieces, like the language, we could make that as a recommendation to the Council of Commissioners. Are they authorized to change those cleanup pieces or no?
So the problem with that is after reviewing our current charter, I did not find anywhere in the charter where it specifically gives them the authorization to do so. The only amendments that that the commission, current commission is authorized to make are amendments to our charter to make it, not correlate, but, be copacetic with state law. If state law changes, and then our charter is now all of a sudden, at odds with that state law, they have the authority to amend the charter to make them, fall in line with each other. Because specifically under Article 9 of the Montana Constitution, our local government is to comply with all statutory laws in the state of Montana.
So to Ms. Dolan's point, if there's a lot of language cleanup that we need to do, then it might behoove us to ask the voters if we may redraft.
Yes. And then the next question becomes is the charter, do we present an entire charter to them in a voting manner? And that's the question that we have out to the MACO attorney and also to the, there's a board that convenes in the state of Montana every so many years with regards to local governments and how they're being, conducted. And they're currently not in sessions, my understanding, but Sean was looking to see if we could find some names of the people that are on that commission to help us in that area if we do intend on drafting an entire new charter to encompass all of the things that this study commission wants to do, how that has to be presented on a ballot. And is it, if you can kind of look in the packet from 2006, but I also think of looking at a packet, sometimes it's got, the little description of what you're voting on, and then underneath it's, 3 or 4 more paragraphs. I don't know if that's how it has to look or not, but that is a question that we're going to ask.
Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick follow-up, Matt. With regard to the mention of the Local Government Commission, is that a group of state legislators? Could you say they're not in session?
Yes, and I don't know if I used the correct term, their session, if they're not in session or not, but yes, it's their state legislators is my understanding, and now I can't think of the name of it, but it was like a subcommittee that dealt with an overview of local governments. And we just happened to come across it through all the research that we're doing. And I'm like, well, let's call them. And then I, did the instant Google trying to find them. And it says, this is currently not, there was nothing available. But I've already made a couple of phone calls to the people I know over there to see if they can point me in the right direction. Yep.
Mr. Steppen.
Forgive me for going back again, but for clarity, are we talking about potentially drafting a new charter as a way to address more than 3 issues? And if so, I'm curious how we can do so while still providing multiple options for each of those issues. You could have a lot of different variations of a charter depending on how each issue is perceived by the public, right? And so that's, I guess, where I'm struggling with. We've identified 4 topics that have kind of risen to the top, and I'm curious how we can have the public's input through vote on each of those 4, or if we have to eliminate one, and I know I just kind of keep coming back to the same fundamental question, but I'm struggling with seeing how a rewrite of the charter addresses individual topics without writing, what would that be, 4 times 3 to the what's power? Different variations?
Commissioner, so with regards to that, that is what this body was voted on to decide on, to vote whether or not you're going to look at redoing an entire charter, or if you're going to vote, by majority of redoing just a certain amount of things within the charter and keeping that within the law itself. And again, we don't have a final answer on whether or not one of those questions can specifically be redrafting the charter. But I can say this, if that is a possibility, I do think that that eliminates the sub-options issue, because you're presenting a whole new charter that they're going to vote on. They're not going to be voting on one specific individual question within the charter. So you could look at that if a new charter was drafted and this commission stated that we're going to a new form, this is the new form of government that we're looking at, and this is the charter that we're looking at. Do you wish to adopt the charter, yes or no, after reviewing it? I do not think you can submit, multiple questions under the charter. It has to be a fully agreed upon document in order to be submitted to the voters. And so that's where you guys are going to have to, after having some more debate and listening to some more people, make those recommendations among yourselves, is which way are we going to go? Are we going to just look at keeping to the 3 options, or are we going to look at an option which includes modifying our current form of government in conjunction with submitting a new charter at the same time? But then again, those are 2 separate questions, because if question number 1 is we don't want to change our government, question number 2 becomes null and void because the new charter doesn't apply to the old form of government. So those are all things that need to be discussed within this body itself. Again, like I said, I'll have a final answer on whether or not redrafting an entire charter is possible by your next meeting. However, for right now, I can, with legal certainty, state that if that is not what this body is looking at doing, you are bound by basically the 3 ballot initiatives, or not initiatives, but the 3 ballot questions that you want to put on it that underneath have the two options,
Mr.
each
Dennehy?
one.
Thank you, Matt, and to 2 Matts. I think what we need to do too is we debate the issue and have our comments made, is that what would be easier in terms of voting what we want to get done for the community? 3 ballot issues with the 2 sub-options as part of the vote, or an entire charter that the people of Butte would say, oh yeah, I read it, and we want a entire new charter, which has been like a constitution. The amendments to that part of the Constitution might be a lot easier than saying we want a whole new Constitution in this vernacular, a whole new charter, and say, here you go, voters, do you like this whole new charter? Because some of the things in the charter are very important. Some are very well written. It's been a document that has served 40 years versus, okay, there's 3 ballot issues that we have to come to terms with. What they are going to be, we don't know yet. That's, again, up to our debate and our due diligence here. So, I mean, those are some of the questions we have to grapple with as we move forward.
Mr. Thielen?
Dan, I kind of tend to agree with you and disagree with you, right? I think that at some point we might have to entertain the idea of possibly doing a new charter if we can't agree to what issues are going to be put on there. So I don't think at this point in time anything is off the table. And as you said, some of the things are really well written, and they could stay in, and you could just add to them or enhance some of the current subjects in there. So it's just something we're going to have to take a look at that time. So I think it's still all on the table.
Mr. Steppen?
It just seems to me that the writing of a new charter limits the public's opportunity to vote on the things that they feel are important. And the way that I'm understanding it is correct. That would be us having to make the recommendation, say that, there will be a change to the executive form of government with a city manager. And we would have to make a recommendation on the number of commissioners. And then it becomes a yes or no to accept the new charter or not, where maybe a voter feels strongly about the chief executive form, but not as strongly about the commissioners, but it's an all or nothing option, if that makes sense. And that seems limiting to me, that for them to accept the new form, our recommendations have to align with each one of those important issues without getting a vote of the people to determine that.
Mr. Thielen?
I kind of agree and I kind of don't, Matt. We're here to do a job. We're not here to make friends. You know, I mean, some people are going to like it, some people aren't going to like it. You're never going to please all the people all the time. We're going to have to do what we can, what we feel is best for the community, and put it forth. If they don't like it, they're not going to vote for it. It's that simple. So then that puts it back to square one, I'd imagine, or go back to the old charter, wouldn't it?
I believe that'd be correct. In addition, that's also why I do believe at the end of, not the end, but as part of the statutes with regards to a municipal study commission, sometimes, you know, recommendations can't be agreed upon, which is why you submit no recommendation.
I think as we do our work and we go through our deliberations, I think your opinion in regards to the charter question is really important for us
Yes.
to have ASAP, because otherwise we can talk around the conversation or talk around the issues for weeks. And then secondly, I think we've all been very diligent about making sure we have good voter input and that we're allowing our voters ample opportunity to vote on the things that they want to your point, Mr. Steppen, in terms of commission. You know, if we are thinking we need to redraft a whole charter because we want to include those three that we've been talking about, or four that we've been talking about, and we can't choose between those four, I think that might be, to Dan's point, it might be confusing to the voters in terms of like, hey, here's a whole new charter instead of we're changing number of commissioners, city manager, et cetera. So I think we've got to be diligent is what I'm trying to bring it back full circle to in our considerations. Also, in terms of workload and time, you know, we'd want to be diligent about what we're doing in that process, because we have some example charters from other communities that we can use from. We have ours as well, but I'm not sure that the whole baby and bathwater have to go out together at this point. I think we have a strong charter that we can amend, but I am open to what the desire of this commission is in terms of moving forward with the questions. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a couple things. First, a question. Matt, can you find out for us if it's a limited number of questions on the ballot, why that is? I mean, that is kind of the crux of the matter here, because we're dealing with a very old charter, and, you know, I hate to disagree, but first of all, people don't follow the charter, how it's written, and we hear that. I've heard that a lot when I was a county commissioner, and there's no accountability there, and the language is antiquated. So even trying to get up to the technological age that 20 years ago we didn't have to deal with, you know, and I do understand the yay or nay crux of doing an entire charter, but at the same time, I really want to find out, you know, the minutia of why it's so limiting, because in 2006 they had 7 issues on the ballot, and, you know, it may have been a while since I had one in 2006, but I would say that there are a lot of issues that, you know, a couple have risen to the top, the number of commissioners and the city county manager. Fire, you know, with everything that happened in Helena with fire, that's certainly on the top of the list as well. But there are a number of things that the public hasn't had an opportunity to chew on yet. And I think if we make these determinations ahead of time, when we only have like 200 and some odd surveys back, we have 36,000 people in this county, and we can't get ahead of ourselves making these determinations without, to Ray Lynn's point, the community's input. And I think that, you know, while we're doing the hard work to try and get people to, you know, engage in our process, you know, there are a number of things, and I'll bring this up later in the meeting, of, you know, we still have research to do. We still have presentations to have to get to learn things about what should be on the docket. And so, we can't keep dragging our feet on, from Anaconda, Sheriff Coroner, forensic audit, all these things that we need to learn more about. We need to do that before we start setting ourselves up for, charter language and ballot issues. There's a whole list and, maybe even more that we don't even know about from the community, the things that need to be changed in the charter.
Mr. Dennehy?
Thank you.
And to answer
Madam-
the question, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Commissioner Dolan, that's one of our questions is why in 2006 we were allowed to do 7 and now we're limited to
Sorry.
3. And that's where there's not a lot out there with regards to this. It's kind of, you can actually read that in the emails for the River Valley County stuff that they say that there's just not a ton of case law or opinions or anything on it. Really what it boils down to is what it looks like is each year you send it off to the election committee, and when they're like, yeah, sure, go ahead, then that county does what they do. And I don't know if that changes from year to year, but we're going to get an answer on why they got to do that in 2006. And now it looks like we're limited to 3 here. We will answer that.
Madam Chair, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Cindy. I think we brought this up before earlier in our deliberations, but the ballot requirement is section 7-3-150 and 7-3-151 of the Montana Code annotated state law. And if you review the MSU information that they provided us, it's in Unit 6, page 28. There are also limits to the number of sub-options that can be on the petition. As Matt said, 7-3-151 of MCA says that a petition recommendation cannot include more than 3 sub-options. Each of those sub-options cannot have more than 2 alternatives. And they give you an example on page 28 of the MSU unit of education for study commissions. So obviously what happened in 2006 might have been a change in the law. They might have amended the law, might have created the Montana Code annotated that says, okay, you can't have 30 ballot issues because it dilutes what you're trying to do in terms of reforming and amending your charter or your form of government. So this law is not 2006, this is last year. And so there is, and to answer your question, the MCA state law has provided that alternative. So yeah, what happened in 2006 was maybe an outlier, maybe not correct, but right now it's 3. It's sub-options with 2 alternatives under each sub-option, 3 sub-options.
Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I kind of read it like Matt did, Matt Steppen, with regard to how that language is, and I would like to, Matt's going to check, Matt Enruth County Attorney is going to check that, because I read that a little differently, the same way of, it's very confusing. It's not obvious on that language in the law. It just says, in these sub-options, but I read that differently. I read it like Matt did, so we'll have to get some clarification.
Other discussion? All right, County Attorney Enruth, thank you very much for that lovely update. And our pivot might be happening soon, but we'll look forward to what you find out in the opinion regarding the rationale about the number of options and then the possible directions we can go.
Well, and I thank the commissioners for that too. And like I said, my office as of today is finally fully staffed. And now I get to sit down and do my actual job, which is nice. And this is a big part of it. So you're going to be meeting a lot more from me. Sean and I will be working on, the ballot language and how that is to be drafted. When you look in that memorandum, that's got to go in front of another committee to tell us that that's okay to put on the ballot. So we're going to start sticking to those timelines and getting on those things. So we'll provide you with an additional update here prior to the next meeting. And with that being said, I'm going to go to football. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to unfinished business. We had overview of public hearing. and GIS progress. I would like to look at GIS progress with the fire district mapping. You'd given that in the correspondence. Is there anything else to add to that or any other discussion?
No, just that if I get anything else, now that we have access to OneDrive, I'll make sure to put that on there for you guys so you have any of that correspondence.
Commissioners, was there any more information that anybody needed regarding the GIS with regard to fire district or adding? We kind of jumped ahead in our agenda, so I just want to circle back that we're still on topic there. Okay, all right, thank you. So can we go back to overview of public hearing, please? Ms. Adams, do you have overview for us?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I don't have a lot to add tonight, just so I'm kind of putting together a report that will go to all of you that you can incorporate as you wish in your draft report. We have about 338 as of tonight survey respondents. If you recall, we're hoping to get to about 375. That'd be our statistically significant number for the number of voters in our county. So I guess my only question really is, how long do we want to let that survey go before we cut that off? Because we will need to kind of cut that off so that I can include all of those answers. If you remember, there are quite a few open-ended answers. So the summaries are great. You kind of hear what people are thinking, but I do think you're going to want to read through all of those open-ended answers. So just kind of need to decide schedule-wise when we want to cut that off.
Mr. Silk?
Madam Chair, thank you. When is our preliminary report due?
Right. So we had said we wanted it in at the end of, by the end of November.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then are we going to be able to, I mean, I think surveys are just phenomenal. Just, I think there you get, that's the best way to get public engagement, especially since we have over 300 people. And I know it's not as many as we wanted, but it's definitely more than who showed up to the open houses. Would it be a good recommendation to say, you know, a couple weeks prior to the preliminary report ending so we can analyze all that data and then potentially with what we get from that data plus what we hear from County Attorney Enruth on the direction of which direction the full charter or we narrow it down to 3 topics, then we'll be able to submit another survey to the community?
Ms. Adams, do you have an idea, like how much time would you like?
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. It's not a matter of how much time I want or I need. I think it's more a matter of how much time you guys need to, you know, you're going to have, you know, 300 plus, maybe 400 responses to, I'm not sure how many questions are open-ended, maybe half a dozen. You know, it's kind of a lot of information. So I don't know if 2 weeks is maybe enough. We could cut it off at the end of October, and then I could get you a report maybe the first week of November, and that would give you a little bit more time. And we can, you know, kind of push the survey out, you know, over the next couple weeks, give it one more push to try to get some more responses, but it's really up to you guys.
That timeline seems reasonable to me. Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is it statutorily put in at the end of November for a preliminary report? Is that a hard and fast date? It is, okay. And then what is in that preliminary report? The preliminary report is to decipher for the folks what is going on the ballot and what are going to be recommendations for the council of commissioners?
The preliminary findings to date. Remember that chapter I sent out via email, was it a couple of weeks ago? It kind of outlines exactly what we need to have in there, but you've summarized that correctly.
Okay. So my concern still is, you know, engagement and getting people, you know, the survey. So if we can extend it as long as humanly possible, that would be great. I don't know. Thank you.
I think if we roll to the end of October, like cut it off on Halloween, if you will, that should give us enough time to review, and then hopefully, you know, your desire to push it out again, and us all, again, bringing those codes around and asking people to try to take that survey, I think we're going to do all we can do, with our hopes that we get to our 378? Such an odd number.
375 roughly.
375,
yeah.
okay. So I think that's the best that we can do. Other thoughts or any other concerns? Mr. Silk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one more. So will we be able to revamp a survey with more specific questions so we can get even more dialed in with what the public wants with regard to our topics? We're going to put out another survey, is that correct? Just to continue the engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. I would think so. And especially if, given what Mr. Enruth had talked to us about tonight, if there has to be a pivot or there's a change, I think we need to definitely almost bring the cavalry back out for another survey, a whole nother set of listening sessions, perhaps. So, just my thoughts, off the cuff here.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that the survey runs till October 31st, have 2 weeks of discussion and have Shannon get the data back to us, and then after reviewing that data, come up with a preliminary report to the community, and then go from there, to see what the county attorney says and what the state law is, and make those pivots as you described them.
So I have a motion to close let me see if I get this right, Dan. The motion to close the survey at the end of October 31st, with 2 weeks review time, and then begin the process of the preliminary report.
That's correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So I have a second by Silk. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So I have one opposition from Ms. Dolan, all others in favor. Okay, so that looks like you have a direction. Thank you very much for your work with us, and thank you for that overview.
Thank you.
Okay, so the Study Commission OneDrive update. Go ahead.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I wanted to talk about the public hearing for a second with regard to the formatting of it. And we talked about this after the meeting last week outside of the courthouse, and I just wanted to put this on the record because it was a little disconcerting to have 4 options for people to give public comment at our very first public hearing and then comment on anything else. That determination, I think, was made by yourself and Mr. Dennehy and Mr. Stepp in an email thread that didn't include the rest of us, and I think we need to all be included on what is happening with a public hearing, because what that gave the public a sense of what our top 4 things were and then everything else. And that is disingenuous because we don't know what the public wants yet. We have heard some things percolate to the top, but a public hearing is for any comment that people have. And I think making that structure, it just put us on the back foot a little bit. I think that, the public needs to decide, what is most important, and we will disseminate that eventually, but I think putting that out in a public hearing, our very first one, wasn't the right way to do that. And I hope in the future when we have public hearings and ask for public comment, it can be anything and they're all on the same level playing field. Thanks.
So noted. And question, just for clarification, it was with County Attorney Enruth and myself. We had had a correspondence regarding what was legally required and what the precedent that Butte-Silver Bow has as stated on their website. That was the conversation. And then in terms of my decision-making for how to facilitate the meeting, I felt that we had been out for all of our open houses. We'd been on Party Line. We'd had our op-eds. These were things that were coming up, and people were coming to the meeting prepared to speak about those, and that it was open to comment on anything that was not that. And so I think, I agree that we can have a better discussion internally as far as like how to proceed with things. That's, certainly I'm open to that, but I feel confident and completely okay with the way that we led that meeting. But I appreciate you bringing the issue forward. Any other discussion about the overview of the public meeting or any other things that people would like to discuss there? So are we good to move on? Okay. All right, so our study commission OneDrive update, Ms. McKenzie?
So earlier today, I guess right before this meeting, we finally got access. We had to wait to get approval from the chief executive and the county attorney before IT could allow us to get that access. And then right before this meeting, you gave us that access. So we'll start to upload everything onto that to make it easier for everybody.
Thank you. Any other discussion regarding that? All right, so the next unfinished business is Party Line. We're going to be back on Party Line again for October 29th. And who was, I guess, in the bullpen for that? Mr. I think you like being on the radio, Mr. Thielen. Very good. Okay. Okay. Very good.
Madam Chair, I could be in the bullpen too. I know that both Ben and Cindy have done double time
Okay.
on a Party Line, unless they want to continue to do it, but it'd be, yeah.
And Mr. Silk, you had your finger up too.
Yeah, I had it was my mistake. I had a conflict when Ben was on it last with vacation time, so I did miss, and I would more be happy to be in the bullpen as well, but if someone can't make it, let me know. But I do look forward to going back on there and really appreciate that opportunity that we have.
All right, so amongst yourselves, decide who I love that everybody wants to go and visit with Ron. That's great. So please just let us know, like, who's gonna do. Okay, I like it. Okay, so we'll have Mr. Silk and Mr. Steppen and Mr. Dennehy on the 29th. I think it's fine for 3 of you to go. We'll have our heavy hitters. So we should get some home runs. This metaphor is getting terrible.
Take it easy on the heavy hitter.
All right, so thank you all for taking that on. Mr. Steppen, op-ed?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'd sent an email earlier and I printed a similar sheet that I'd like to give everybody a copy of. And it's really just suggested or some options for op-ed themes going forward, or at least what's up next. You know, and so I put together just some proposed themes, and again, these are just suggested themes based on where we're at in the process and what we feel is important to relay to the public. The first one, more addressing the lack of participation we've seen from the public, or an encouragement to engage and why it's important. So that was the first one that kind of jumped out at me. I think we had 11 people speak at the public hearing. And then after, just in keeping with the theme that we've had 4 issues rise to the top, it could be an explanation of those 4, or we could look at doing a series on each of the important topics. But after hearing the comments tonight, and I think it might behoove us to maybe look at option 1 here until we have more direction from County Attorney Inruth, because I wouldn't want to mislead that we're moving in a direction when we could be pivoting altogether. So it could be just updating on where we are, what's next, and the importance of engaging with us.
Comments or thoughts? Mr. Dennehy?
Madam Chair, I agree with Matt. Given tonight's discussion and where we're going to lead in our decisions, I think there's nothing wrong with why your voice matters on any op-ed. I think that's kind of facilitates more people getting involved with our discussions, more people being in the audience, more people sending written comments to us, what's important to them. And I think that at least should be our first. The power of participation is important, and then we'll have to wait and see where we're at legally in terms of where we want to go and what the decision of the commission is going to be. So thanks, Matt, for putting that together.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Steppen, I appreciate you taking the lead on getting these opinion pieces in the newspaper and having been the driver of this process. So thank you. And I would agree. I think let's start with one and see what happens on the 20th and go from there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll draft something, send it to the group, and we can have an opportunity to provide feedback before anything goes to the Montana Standard.
And I'd like to circle back to Mr. Vanderub's question on the op-ed and what is it all about. And these are the opinion pieces that we attempt to do fairly frequently to engage our public. It's an informational way to reach out and hopefully gain more interest in the study commission's work. And then I would say the very reason we're not putting out news releases after each meeting is practicality. It's time and effort, and this is a volunteer commission and we're not reporters, so to speak, but I think we do bring the op-eds, and you've done a very good job, Mr. Steppen, to make sure that we're bringing those relevant pieces up. So I think this is our 4th one now, is that correct? So thank you very much. All right, any other discussion on op-eds? Okay, so moving on to our new business. We had originally started to bring the big topics in for discussion in the new business so we could start to look at what issues might be rising to the top that we need to create those ballot questions for. And again, tonight's conversation from Matt Enruth is a little bit upset the apple cart, but I would entertain the discussion of neighborhood councils and community councils to begin tonight, and then moving into discussion of the additional research needed. So if we want to open that discussion regarding neighborhood councils. Thoughts on where we're at with that and things, Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't mean to be disrespectful in saying what I'm going to say, because I do appreciate Mr. Banderob's consistent engagement with the study commission. But where we sit today, this particular issue has almost taken over the study commission. And I just don't feel it rises to that occasion. And I don't feel that it should be part of and I do understand why you did this, Raylan, to have some given back and forth with someone who comes here every single week. But to put this on the agenda, to talk about this every week, dilutes, and that was a good word that Dan used earlier, it dilutes what we're doing, and it almost, rises to cream at the top when I don't know if it necessarily should at this point. I agree that I'd like to have a discussion back and forth, and I don't want to change that precedent with public comment, and that was a good point. But for all intents and purposes, just because someone comes up here every week, and that's great engagement, doesn't necessarily mean that is going to be the top issue that we need to discern and give a huge amount of time to. And that's just what I wanted to say before we started the discussion.
Okay, so this in new business, the intention is to take our issues that we've looked at as we start to drill down and decide if we want them to be a ballot issue or not. Now, given Mr. Enruth's discussion tonight, we might have our cart before the horse. So we were starting with this one because we wanted to clear the deck with it and get moved on to the next issues, whether that be chief executive versus city manager, whether it be the fire district's issue, whether it be the number of commissioners and should they be paid or not paid. So we are looking at those, the big issues that have come forward so far. And so that was the intention. Ms. Dolan, it wasn't that we wanted to add it to every single agenda or that we talk about it every week. In my looking at our current charter, the community councils are in the charter already. And so, if we have to prioritize, let's say we decide on 3 questions, and this is hypothetical. If we decide on 3 questions, or 3 ballot issues, and we only have those 3, since community councils are in the charter, I would say we should leave those ones behind and focus on the other 3, because, changing the number of commissioners, the city manager form, and maybe fire are a priority at this point, given that community councils are already in the charter, or neighborhood councils are. That's my opinion. I wanted to open that discussion for others to weigh into. And then again, like I said, we might be cart and horse at this point. So, Mr. Thielen.
Madam Chair, thank you. The whole thing with the number of commissioners, people are wondering how they're going to pay for it. They don't want their taxes to go up. That's where another place where that forensic audit would come in, to find out where they can get the money from, or what department has too much. I mean, it all goes hand in hand. And why some people are so adamant against it, it just boggles my mind, but it needs to be done.
Mr. Thielen, I think that with regards to the forensic audit issue, in the way that I'm reading our background documents, I think that might be out of our jurisdiction. But we can get an opinion from Mr. Enruth on that for sure. But to me, it looks like it's one of the red light things. It might be a recommendation that we would make to council that they do the forensic audit, or that there are individuals in our community asking for that. But I'm not sure that it's in our purview. But I'm certainly willing to, graph the email to Mr. Enruth to ask for an opinion on it. And I agree with you. I understand where you're coming from in regards to looking at how would we pay for things. I think that was something else this commission had discussed, is that while it's not our responsibility to figure out how to pay for things, if we should recommend or the voters decide they want to have full-time paid commissioners, we might do well to look at the budget, have an opinion from our budget office and maybe our treasurer about how it could be paid for, what the possibilities are in terms of rearranging positions or staffing. Although that too is outside of our purview. Our purview is really about the charter change and then what the voters want. But you open that question, so I guess we can grapple with both of these questions at the same time.
Madam Chair, in terms of how do you pay for the recommendations that this study commission will eventually get to, whether it's a 3 ballot, 2 options, or creating a new charter, and I think this was discussed before, it's not our responsibility to say how you're going to pay for these choices. Our responsibility is to provide a ballot change that we have been looking over for the last 2 years, and provide the voters of this community options of what they want to do. In that option, why it's really important, and I agreed with, I first agreed that, well, it's going to cost some money, but also I agree that if this is what the voters of this community wants, finding the money is secondary. That is a determination of the commissioners and the executive branch, and to implement our recommendations that are passed by the voters. So whether or not this is going to increase certain expenditures to implement our suggestions that are voted on in favor by the voters is something that the council commissioners and the chief executive is going to have to do. How they find the money, they usually find the money when there's something important and the people are telling them this is what they want to do. I don't think it's our responsibility to say, well, we're not going to do this. And I know that's not what you're saying, but I think it's secondary to making our recommendations, and how they find the money is up to them.
Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lori, I have a question for you. I think the word audit is in our charter, that a yearly audit. Am I correct with that, Lori? Do you remember?
I was just looking for it as
Yeah.
we're going through.
Okay.
It does say that the chief executive provides his goals, and they go through the budget, the preliminary budget, and what was different than last year, but I can't specifically find the
Yeah,
audit.
okay.
one.
So I think that might be in there, but it gives direction for the executive branch. So I have to disagree with Dan here to say, yes, our decisions are going to have monetary implications, and we understand that, and we know that budgeting is not in our purview, but telling Butte-Silver Bow government from the people, every single time I've raised this issue with folks in the community at Walmart or wherever, people are overwhelming. Why don't we do that already? I thought we did that already. Because where does the money go? That's a big question that people have in Butte-Silver Bow. So it ties directly to these ballot issues that have a monetary price tag, and to say to them, yes, if we do a forensic audit, we can have a complete, transparent government as to where our money's going, and they can in turn make those big decisions on how do we fund things. But if you have a framework and your charter's your framework and you have it in there, even if you add a word, if audit's already in there and you add the word forensic, it changes everything, like it does with may, the word may and the word shall, because it's a directive. But then again, it gives the impetus is for the Council of Commissioners to do those things. We just create on the agreement or disagreement of the voter what the framework's going to look like. And I think that's a very important piece of that framework is a forensic audit.
Ms. Dolan, I want to clarify. So you were recommending a charter change, that there's a forensic audit part of the charter?
Madam Chair, sorry, Lori had a...
Madam Chair, I did find it in the charter. It is within section 3.03, powers and duties of the Council of Commissioners. To provide, under subsection D is to provide for an independent audit of the finances of the local government, is how it currently reads.
Okay. And so Butte-Silver Bow believes that they're meeting that by having the auditors that come with Ms. Hasler, is that correct?
Madam Chair, yes, I believe it's Newland and Company that are currently the auditors that come from outside, and they have for quite some time.
Thank you. And so back to you, Ms. Dolan.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Lori, for looking into that. And I would say there's a big difference between an audit and a forensic audit. An audit for Newland and Company, for Butte-Silver Bow and our budget office, is to make sure all the numbers add up and all the numbers are in their right boxes, and that it doesn't go under the hood and say, where is all the money going? What are we paying for? And what are we getting for that money? So, and these are questions for, of course, again, for the Council of Commissioners, not for us. But if people are asking us, where does all the money go? We pay a lot of money in this town, and we don't have streets that work. We don't have this, whatever you constantly hear from folks. If we can make a framework that helps in that regard, and I think, especially with budget implications of our decision-making, that would be the avenue to go down. Because then, again, we've always heard transparency. That's a great transparency tool, is a forensic audit.
So I'm trying to capture the essence of what's being asked here. So that would be a fifth issue as we're kind of framing them out right now. So, and I know we heard from public, and we got public comment from emails on forensic audits, or adding that language. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing from you, Ms. Dolan, and you, Mr. Thielen? Okay. All right. Thank you for helping me understand where we're at. Mr. Silk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it's a red light within our scope of work, but it's so important to the people, why can't we ask the Council of Commissioners to go ahead and perform one now where it might be in their scope of work? And as the legislative body, they can determine if they want to go ahead and do one or not, to where we might have access to it, given that we have a little bit of time to figure out what we're even going to do in general. Is it something that we could just ask now, whether they're willing to do it or not, instead of putting it in the charter or waiting, and maybe not even doing it from this body, but to ask a body that could, that is just as, they represent the public as much as we do. I wonder if we could ask the Council of Commissioners their thoughts on it, what they'd be willing to do it. Because if we're hearing that people are wondering where the money's going and all of these issues, I guarantee the Council of Commissioners is as well, and I wonder if they've already thought about it.
Mr. Denny, and then I'll take you, Ms. Dolan.
Madam Chair, it might be one of those issues that we discuss and not table, but it could be a supplemental report to the Council of Commissioners asking them to be engaged in a forensic audit. I would like to know what a definition of a forensic audit is, because I have been part of those forensic audits on a number of occasions in my career. Not that I wanted to be, but I had to be. Also, if you're taking federal money, like I did, and you miss a digit and the money's not where it's supposed to be, those independent auditors catch that, and the preliminary study and report that is given back, your name's in it, not your name, but your department's in it saying, hey, you're missing a substantial bit of money. Then you meet with that auditor and say, what's up, and find out what the problem is, and find where the problem is. And it wasn't anything nefarious. It was an accountant error, and it was done. Now, on the forensic audit, it's expensive. There has to be some sideboards on what you're looking at. A forensic audit could be 5 months to a year. Yes, it is. Well, it is true, because I've been under one, Ben. They did one. So whether or not you want a forensic audit, that's fine. Maybe we ask the council that they should be involved in one. I like to know where there's communication that there's something missing in the local government. But if forensic audit is something that this commission approves of and votes for, that's fine. But I think we have to define what that is.
Mr. Thielen, then I'll take Ms. Casey.
So I don't know how long ago that you were audited, Dan, and no disrespect intended, but they use AI now. They can do this whole county in a month, and they can discover every transaction. They can see where every penny's been spent. And it's nothing that anybody's doing wrong. But if they're spending more money here that they don't need to be, it could go over here to pay for these guys. If the roads have more money than they should have, then they can give it to whomever, give it to the water company, anybody. So they can find the money there by doing that. And it doesn't take 5 months to a year anymore. They can do the whole county within a month.
I'll take Ms. Casey, and then Ms. Dolan. Ms. Casey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also would be with Dan on a definition of forensic, and I get what you're saying, Ben, but right now we do have an independent, or Butte-Silver Bow has an independent audit, and then everything that you purchase or pay for goes in a claim and goes to the Finance and Budget Committee of the Butte-Silver Bow Council of Commissioners. So I think it would be important that we define what the difference is for the public between all of those, and we may need maybe the budget director to explain what exactly Newlands do for their audit. I've been, just like Dan, part of that audit and had to produce different things over the course of my career also, but I think that would be important because you have to submit a claim that has to be approved by the Finance and Budget Committee before a department head can pay a person. So is this different? I just think we would need more explanation, or at least I would, to help me understand it better. of what, I get that it shows where all the money's going and that, but does it drill down to staffing levels? What is that kind of audit, I guess? I would need more definition too.
Thank you. Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I agree with you, Lori. I think it's almost, again, putting the cart before the horse, because we still need, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse when I keep asking for folks from Anaconda to come to this meeting and to tell us about fire in Anaconda and how that works. It's not in their charter. I want to learn that. I want to get more information. I want to learn about the sheriff coroner. What does that job look like? What would that look like for Butte-Silver Bow? We haven't had that. And now to add forensic auditing, there are forensic auditors in Billings. There might be some closer to Butte-Silver Bow, but we should invite them and have us learn exactly to your point. What does a forensic audit look like? What will it take? How much time will it take with the advent of AI? What are the differences between a forensic audit and the audit that's done year after year after year from Newland and Company? Is it just making sure all the numbers match and all the claims match and all of that? So we need some real information so then we can give that to the public, and the public can watch that on YouTube and get informed to decide whether or not they want these things to be changed in the charter or added to the charter. And if we can't get these things at our meetings, we're doing a disservice to the public. And I don't know why we're dragging our feet on getting, and I know a lot of things have happened, it's no one's fault in particular, it's just that we need to get folks at that podium to give us information so we can learn. I think we all just want to learn more about these things, to have them rise to top 5 or top 3 or top 2 or whatever it is, because if we don't, we just don't know. And it just frustrates me that we can't learn that and we're getting stymied by that, and I just don't know why.
Ms. Dolan, I think that is the next item on our agenda, is which information do we want, do we need to continue our research? To the Anaconda question, as you know, we had a change in our ex officio. We've had the terrible case that happened in Anaconda. So I don't feel like we've drug our feet. I feel like it's just been, timing has been difficult with that particular issue and trying to get those folks here to give their testimony. So if we could kind of bring ourselves back, it sounds like forensic audit and definitions of that and understanding what that is might be one of our pieces of information or research that we need to look for. But if we can bring ourselves back to anything else that we want to discuss regarding neighborhood councils or community councils, or if we'd like to rather bring that back following whatever Mr. and Ruth has to say to us on the 20th, I would open to that as well. But if we can kind of go back up an agenda item and then maybe go into the next thing. Ms.
Thank you, Madam
Dolan?
Chair. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'd hold it in abeyance until we get a definition or some more clarity from County Attorney and Ruth, and then we can get back to asking more specific questions. Easy for me to say.
Okay. All right, so let's hold that one. We'll bring it back. And then now, if we can move forward to the discussion of additional research needed. So forensic audit has gotten there. The fire council or the structure from Anaconda is a piece. What else do we have on our minds? Pardon?
Madam Chair, Sheriff Coroner.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to talk with Dan Clark from MSU again on his recommendation on, just from his knowledge of what his idea, how many commissioners we might need based off of our population and our size. He seems so knowledgeable about one of our main topics and he loves to talk about it. And he's a great guy to listen to. And I feel like he would have a ton of he would be able to answer a ton of our questions. So I would, and maybe it's just one of those nights where we just talk about restructuring and we gather all of our questions from everybody and just talk to him one night.
Okay, very good. Okay, I think with that one too, there was research that the Montana Association of Counties, or MACO, has regarding commissioners, the number of commissioners in various communities and their salaries. And so I think that would be another piece that would be valuable or value adding to us. And then there was a suggestion from Russ O'Leary that we visit with Andy Hunthausen, who is a commissioner in Lewis and Clark County, and Mr. Tim Burton, who is the city manager there, if people are open to that one as well. Other research needs or things that you guys are considering. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We also got we received an email from Fritz Daly with regard to Superfund and a independent Superfund coordinator or information person. And while it might not be on the very top of the list at this point, it may be something that might be a good recommendation for the Council of Commissioners. But I would like to see, and get some more information about what that entails and what is, Fritz, Mr. Daly, he's very passionate, as we all know, about Superfund, but having that discussion might be worthwhile to get some more information and to kind of get a context of what that would look like.
Okay, other suggestions or needs? Ms. Casey.
Madam Chair, are we going to designate somebody, or is McKinsey going to reach out to these people, or do folks have contacts that they can reach out and maybe help? I don't know. I think that would be important, that we kind of designate who's going to reach out, because I feel like maybe even with the Anaconda Deer Lodge situation, that's maybe at the very beginning when folks asked if they could have, we didn't really appoint someone to reach out. I know Kim had, our ex officio had at a certain point, but I think early on Commissioner Shaw asked for someone, and I don't think we were designating people to do that. So I think that might help too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So if we can get the topics down and then maybe divide and conquer, I'd appreciate that. Are there any other topics? Okay, so let's make sure I've got them correct. Mr. Dennehy.
Madam Chair, I think McKinsey and Annie can do the due diligence of getting a hold of the people that we have on our list. They're very capable. They know people from their work in their office. I will help with Mr. Burton just because I went to school with him, and I'm sure he would come and provide any information on a city manager issue. But I'm sure McKinsey and Annie can make those calls. They have that probably in the chief executive's Rolodex somewhere. So we'll ask them, and if they run into troubles, we'll Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know what AI was either. So there we go. We're good then. Yeah, whatever Rolodex is back. Well, thanks for that.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you've been volunteered. But I think that does make sense in terms of structure. And then if there's help that's needed, I think there's commissioners that will be happy to help you. And maybe we can put that down. So Dan has already volunteered to reach out to Tim Burton with you or for you or get the information to you. So let's make sure I've got the topics correct that we'll have you acting upon. So we have MACO. We'd like to reach out to them regarding research on other districts, number of commissioners, and salaries in other counties and cities. And I think that might be as simple as an email. I don't know that they need to come and present because they can give us that data. We have the Anaconda folks regarding their fire district or how they set up their fire. Volunteer fire department and city fire department. We have Russ O'Leary, Andy Hunthausen, Tim Burton, which Dan will be part of that. We had the question of the forensic audit. I don't know who we would reach out to for that, defining that. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For that one, I have spoken with a forensic auditing company a couple years ago. When I reference Billings, I don't know if there's anybody closer, but Mackenzie, if you find that, if you just Google like forensic auditors, one's in Missoula, okay. But if you get, just to ask them if they would be able to come over and talk with us about it, and then maybe reach out to our budget office, like Lori suggested, to get their addition, that might be a good way too. But I would be able to help if needed.
Okay, so it would be Karen Hassler to come back and kind of discuss the auditing procedures and then getting a definition of what a forensic audit is. Okay, and then our sheriff coroner question, correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just before we go to the next one, the sheriff coroner, I think we'd probably need more than just a definition of forensic auditing. I think we definitely need a forensic auditor here to talk with us about what they do, what that it entails, and kind of give us some, so we can learn about those two different things, regular audit versus a forensic.
Okay, I think I'm saying the same thing. Okay, it's okay. We're clarifying that we're on the same page. All right, and then staff or sheriff coroner, we wanted to, Ms. Dolan?
Yes, there's a former sheriff coroner in Jefferson County that I can reach out to if you want me to. Otherwise, we could just go to anyone that's, this gentleman might have some time to come over and visit with us.
And then we had the question of Dan Clark regarding number of commissioners based on the size and other models. I think that also might be, we could do that via email, or he could come back and present again. He does talk a lot, though, so it gets us a long meeting.
Madam Chair, and he might be able to, because he does reach out to Mako too, so he could probably kill two birds with one stone and talk about some of the county issues and some of the city issues, city managers versus size of commissions too. So
Okay.
Dan is a good resource, and we could maybe even do it by Zoom or something.
Okay. I like that suggestion.
And we can get our Rolodex and
Okay. And then Fritz Daly, do we want Fritz to come?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would gladly reach out to Fritz and ask him and go from there. I would also mention with Anaconda, I would reach out if you could, and if everyone agrees, to get the fire folks here, fire chief in Anaconda, and also the chief executive if he's willing to come, to kind of get a sense of how that works with, the chief works with the charter, fire's separate, and how that works. It might be helpful to hear from both sides of how that works in Anaconda.
Mr. Silk.
And one more we discussed last meeting, J.R. Richardson. We can just, I think Dan said he could reach out and just schedule a meeting with him, so I don't even know if Mackenzie would have to do that or not, but as far as scheduling, I don't know how that would work.
Madam Chair, I did after the last public hearing where JR was here discussing the fire coordinator's position and kind of ran out of time. And so I did call him right after the meeting. I haven't heard back from him, but I'll make another call, and I think that would, in our discussion of the fire departments and how they are structured in Anaconda Deer Lodge, it might be good to have JR talk a little bit about when he was working as a fire coordinator in Butte-Silver and what that means.
Excellent. Other needs or ideas? Okay. So I have 9. All right. So y'all want to do a lot of work, which is wonderful. I like it. But maybe you and I can visit in terms of who you find out and when they're available, and trying to structure our agendas so that we're not in the seats longer than about 3 hours, if we can make that work. Right. If there's other things that come up as you guys leave tonight, by all means, just put them in email. This is our work, right? Is to do the research and make sure we understand things really well. All right, so the next item in this section was scheduling the calendar for ballot language and charter revisions. And I feel like this one needs to be held in abeyance until after our 20th meeting on the 20th. I feel like our apples really got spilled tonight, so I feel like we're a little bit out of balance. But once we hear from County Attorney Enruth, then I think that will help us guide our agendas too in regard to the deliberations we need to make for that preliminary report. Is there any other discussion regarding this item? Okay. So moving on, we don't have a public hearing. There are no other
Madam
scheduled
Chair.
matters.
Madam Chair, would I be able to ask a question? I know from our last public hearing, and some of the letters that we got that were not read, but we were sent them, would I be able to address some concern that I believe that some of the community has with me being on this commission and talking about the fire service?
Let's put it on our agenda.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll put that into the next agenda and look at, so that everybody on the commission has a chance to review those comments if they haven't already.
Okay.
Because maybe people haven't read all the letters in detail yet.
Okay.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, and then just so everyone's aware, I'm lucky enough to go on family vacation, so I will not be here in the next meeting. But, you know, after the 20th, I think is our next meeting, the next scheduled meeting, I should be here. So just so you guys know.
Mr. Thielen?
Well, I wasn't here for the last public hearing, and I don't know what the letters were, but I myself am happy to have Mr. Silk on this commission for the simple fact it's nice to have somebody that is involved on that side of it to enlighten us and give us answers, at least in his opinion of how things work. And I for one, appreciate that, so.
Thank you, Mr. Thielen. Mr. Steppen?
To echo that, and I have read the comments, Mr. Silk was voted to this commission just as the rest of us were. There's county employees on the commission. You could probably find a reason that any one of these issues may or may not affect us or our families personally, but everybody was voted to this commission under the proper guise, and I'm not sure that anything needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Steppen. I tend to agree. I just want to give Mr. Silk the opportunity to voice any concerns he has if he should decide he wants to bring that forward, and we'll schedule it in a meeting. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Any other scheduled matters? Okay, announcements. We had our public hearing on September 29th. Our next bi-weekly study commission meeting will be on October 20th, so in 2 weeks. In the meantime, it looks like we have a small novel to read from Mr. Enruth, and hopefully we'll have some other things to discuss regarding that. Ms. Dolan.
Yes, Madam Chair, just a quick question. It says bi-weekly. I know next week is Columbus Day, so that's why we're not meeting, because it's Monday's a holiday, a federal holiday. But with the amount of work that needs to be done, I hope we still meet every week and not every 2 weeks going forward, because there's a lot of work to do. So am I correct in saying we're going to, once the federal holiday's over, we'll just keep meeting weekly?
Let's bring it back and have that discussion at our next meeting, because we had agreed to moving off of that schedule. So I want the commissioners to have time to talk. But we do have a report to get done too. So we have a lot of work to do between now and the end of November. Ms. Casey?
Madam Chair, in regards to the large packet, Matt didn't have enough copies, so I didn't get one. But if Mackenzie can just scan it in and put it in the OneDrive, I'll just grab it electronically. In my Rolodex, yes.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, I would call for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Thielen, seconded by Dolan. All those in favor? Any opposed?